Hello friends, Satyendra here, and in this video, let's design this rib pattern fruit basket in Creo Parametric. So let's get started. So this basket is completely done using relation in Creo, and you will see multiple relation working here. So if you see these ribs are having multiple groups here. So this is the first group, then these two are the second group, then this is the third group, then the fourth group, and at last you have this top one. So these are the activities we will do here to design this basket. So let's start from the beginning, and to start it, first you need to create a new file. So go to new, part, solid, assign the name, uncheck default template, say OK, and select a proper template from here. So there are few English template and few metric templates here. So select a proper template. So I'll go with millimeter Newton second part solid. This is a metric template, and I'll say OK. Now first I will create three center axes here. So I'll go to axis. I'll select right datum plane, hold the control key and select top datum plane. Say OK. Once again go to axis. This time you select the right datum plane, hold the control key and select front datum plane. Say OK. Once again axis. This time you go with top datum plane, hold the control key and select front datum plane. Say OK. So we just created three center axes here. Now I'll create a datum plane. So go to the plane, take top datum plane as a reference, move it down. This value will be 35 and say OK. Now the first feature, which is a sketch. So go to the sketch, onto the front datum plane, sketch, normal. Go to the reference and select this newly created datum plane. Now switch off the datums. Now first you draw center axis somewhere here. Then draw the sketch. So start like this and like this. Now add a fillet somewhere here. Now the dimension. So from here till here, this is 100. Now this angle is 70 degree and this radius is radius 10. Your sketch is done. Now say OK. Now this datum plane, I will just rename it. I'll take name as bottom. Now the next feature, which is extrude onto the bottom datum plane, normal. Now draw a circle here. Now the circle dia is 10, so make it 10 and say OK. Now the thickness is 1.5, make it symmetry and say OK. Now the next feature is a sweep, so go to the sweep, select this path, go to the sketch, normal. Now draw a circle here. Circle dia is 1.5 and say OK. Say OK. Now select this feature and go for pattern. I'll go with axis pattern. I'll select this center axis. Now the number of items, this is 20. All around 360 degree, say OK. Now the next feature is the ribs all around this, and for this I will use a special technique. So follow the same step. So first I will go with this sketch. So this is the sketch. Now to create the rib all around, I need to sketch the path first. So for that I'll go to the sketch, then I'll go to the datum plane. I'll take reference to the top datum plane, drag it down. This value you consider as 3, say OK. Then you go for a datum point. Just right click here and select this curve. Hold the control key and select this newly created datum plane. Now you say OK. And go for sketch. Normal. Now go to the reference. Select this datum point as a reference. Normal. Now draw a circle here. Start from here till this reference. Now say OK. Now once you follow this technique, and if you go for pattern, let's say the number of items is 5 and say OK. Now if you carefully see it, all the patterns are following the curve. So this is the advantage of this technique. So I'll just delete the pattern. Now I'll go for sweep. I'll select this path. I'll drag this point to this location and I'll go for sketch. Normal. Now draw a circle here. This circle should be offsetted from this center line. Now this you consider as 1 and the dia also 1. Now I say OK. So this is the sweep you are getting. Now go back to the sketch, go to the tools, relation, and here you add a relation. So select this dimension. This is the offsetted dimension. So SD4 is equal to 1 into cosine bracket trace per into 360 degree into 10 bracket close. Verify it and say OK. Now just say OK. Sketch. OK. Still it is same. Now just change to allow section to change. Now say OK. Now let's understand the relation. So SD4, this is the offset dimension. This dimension is moving like this based on this relation. So here this 1 is the amplitude. So if you increase or decrease it, let's make 1.5 and say OK. Now see, the amplitude is increased. If you decrease it, let's say 0.5, the amplitude got decreased. So I'll keep it 1. You can take cosine or sine. So it will form either a cosine wave or sine wave. Trace per is trajectory parameter into 360 degree. So to form a complete sine wave or cosine wave, you need 360 degree. And this is the number of web 10 numbers. So to increase or decrease the number of web, you can use this value. You can always verify it and say OK. So once this is done, select these two features and make a group. Then select this group and go for pattern. Now here you see few dimensions. One is this dimension, another one is these two dimensions. Now you just select this dimension, go to the dimensions and make it as 2 for increment, and the number of item will be 13. Now just say OK. So go to the front and see the ribs. So all the ribs are following the curve. So this is the advantage of following this technique. So now if you change the angle, let's say this 70 degree is 60 degree. Still ribs are following. You see? Now follow the same procedure one more time. So go to the sketch, then create a datum plane within the sketch. Select reference as top datum plane, move it down, and this time this value will be 4. Say OK. Then go for a datum point. Just right click and select this curve. Hold the control key and select this newly created datum plane. Now say OK and go for sketch. Normal. Go for reference and select this datum point as a reference. Now draw the sketch. So add a circle here, from here till this reference, and say OK. One more time, go to sweep, drag this point this side, sketch, normal. Now last time the sketch was offsetted outside, this time it will be inside. So draw a circle this side, dia is 1 and the offset value is also 1. Go to tools, relation, select this st4 is equals to 1 into cosine bracket, go to the function, look for trace per into 360 into 10, bracket close. Verify it, say OK and OK. Go to the sketch, OK. Change to allow section to change. And say OK. Now group these two features and go for pattern. Select this dimension, go to the dimensions and change this value to 2. Number of item will be 13 and say OK. and the side ribs are done. Now I'll go for bottom ribs. So once again, the bottom ribs will be a sweep feature. So first I need to create the path. So I'll go to the sketch. Now this time I'll select this bottom plane to create the sketch. Now once again I'll create a datum point. I'll just right click here and select this curve. Now first you change the end and make it real. Now this value you consider as 7.5. Say OK and then go for sketch. Go for reference and select this datum point. Normal. Now draw a circle just like this and say OK. So this technique is also similar to the first technique, but there is slight difference. Here we are not creating the datum plane because all the datum points will be in the same plane. So we can go with a single datum plane, which is the bottom datum plane. Now I'll go for sweep. I'll select this path. Now go for sketch. Normal. Draw a circle. This time you draw a circle here. This is 1, the offset value, and this is also 1. Now go to the tools, relation, and write the relation. So SD4 is equals to, I'll just copy this relation, verify it, OK, and OK. Go to the sketch, OK. And say OK. Once again, group these two features and go for pattern. Now this time, select this dimension, go to the dimension and increment, you consider it as 2.2. Number of item will be 10 and say OK. Once again, follow the same procedure. So go to the sketch, select the bottom datum plane, then create a datum point. Just right click here and select the curve. Once again, go to next end and make it real. Now the offset value, you make it 8.6 and say OK. Sketch, normal. Go to the reference and select this datum point as a reference. Now draw the sketch. So draw a circle till this reference and say OK. Then go for sweep. Go for sketch, normal. Same thing, this time you draw the circle this side. This should be 1 and this is also 1. Go to tools, relation. This is the SD4. So write the relation. SD4 equals this. Verify it and say OK. Sketch, OK. Allow section to change. Now say OK. Go to pattern Now group these two features and go for pattern. Select this dimension, make it 2.2, 10 items and say OK. So the bottom ribs are also done. Now the corner ribs, and for this once again we will follow the same procedure. So create the sketch, and inside this first you create a datum point. Move your cursor somewhere here, just right click, once again right click and select only this segment. Now the end is OK, but make it real, and this value you consider it as 0.5 and say OK. Then go for a datum plane, select this datum point, hold the control key and select the bottom datum plane. Say OK and go for sketch, normal. Go for reference and select this point as a reference. Now draw the circle. Till this reference. Say OK. Similarly, one more sketch. Go to the datum point, just right click and select this curve. Make it real, and this offset value you take it as 1.55 and say OK. Then you go for a datum plane, select this datum point, hold the control key and select bottom datum plane. Say OK and go for sketch, normal. Go for reference and select this datum point. Now draw the sketch till this reference and say OK. Now I'll just drag it up. Now you go for sweep, select this curve. Now drag this point from this side to this side. Then go for sketch, normal. Now go for reference, just right click here and select this curve. Now draw a line first, starting from here, passing like this. Check the angle, this angle, this is 22.86. Now delete this line and draw a line from here. This angle should be 22.86 and then you draw a circle somewhere here. Make it construction. Now this is 1 and this is also 1. Now you go for tools, relation, and this time this is SD7. So write the relation. This will be SD7. Verify it and say OK. Sketch, OK. Allow section to change. Say OK. Now group these two features and go for pattern. Now this time you select this dimension 0.5 length, hold the control key and select this angular dimension. So this time we have two dimensions here. Now this increment dimension you consider it as 2.1, and this one, this is the angle, you consider it as 12.04. Now the number of item, which is 7, and say OK. So again, following the same technique, your ribs are following this curve. Now you drag it down and go for sweep. Select this path, drag this side, go to sketch, normal. Now go to the reference, select this curve as a reference. Now draw the line, just like this, and check the angle. So this is 28.88. Delete this, and this time you draw a line inside. And this angle will be 28.88. Now draw a circle, just like this. This is 1. And this is also 1. Now make this line construction. Now go to the tools, relation, and this time this is SD8. So write the relation, verify it, and say OK. Sketch, OK. Allow section to change. And say OK. Now group these two features and go for pattern. This time you select this dimension, hold the control key and select this dimension. Go to the dimension, this increment value you take it as 2.1, and this one you take it as 12.04. Now number of item, so this will be 6, and say OK. So your basket is almost done. Now the top portion, and for that first I'll go to the sketch, onto the top datum plane, sketch, normal. I'll draw a circle. This die is 100, and I'll say OK. Now I'll go to the sweep. I'll select this path, I'll go to the sketch, normal. Now here you draw the sketch, so go to the palette, select 5-sided pentagon, drop it here, close it. Now you drag it somewhere here. This you consider it as 1.5. Tilt it little bit like this and you say OK. Now you draw a line from here till here at the dimension. This you consider as 0.75. Now select the entire sketch and make it construction. Now draw the arc. So start from here and draw like this. Then from here till here, just like this. Then like this. Then this. And this. Then you go for tools, relation. Now here you write the relation based on this dimension. SD8 is equals to trace per into 360 into 50. Verify it. Say OK. Sketch. OK. Allow section to change. Say OK. So this is done. But this profile is not similar to this. This is having a cosine wave. So just add one more relation. That is for cosine wave. So the next relation will be based on this dimension, SD10. So this will be SD10 and the relation will be same. Verify it and say OK. OK. Now the amplitude is 1. I will change it to 0.75 and I'll say OK. I will reduce little bit and I'll say OK. Now you see, you are getting similar basket. Now you need to just apply some aesthetic color. So go to the view, select the color, go to the part and select the part. And now your basket is done. So now the basket is completely done. So that's it from this video. So this was the rib pattern fruit basket in Creo Parametric and I hope this video will be helpful. Now you can like this video if you find this video helpful and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you.